One of the stories when I was a reporter, one of the most important stories that I worked on was kind of the changing character of local economies, especially those economies in the inland west that were resource dependent, mining, timber, and agriculture, and the battles within those communities over the changing demographics and the changing economies. Some of those cities and towns morphed well. Sandpoint, Idaho, for example, up about 60 miles to the northeast of us, turned from a heavily timber-dependent town into a resource mecca, a world-class ski resort, and now a thriving downtown. Some of those communities didn't make the transition very well, and Lindsey Woolsey works with some folks like that. Lindsey is president of the Woolsey Group. It's a research and technical assistance policy consulting company. They work with local folks, local government leaders like you, local industry, try to get them to work together. She lives up in the Okanagan in north central Washington, and she'll tell us more about some of the success stories that she's run into. Here's Lindsey Woolsey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lindsey Woolsey. I'm thrilled to be here today. We all know that the health of our cities and communities depends in large part on the vibrancy of our local economies. We need more jobs. At the national rate of job creation right now, it would need to double in the next couple years just to get back up to speed at pre-recession employment rates. We also know that we can't do this work alone. The health of our communities depends on public-private partnerships between businesses and government, and we need more partnerships. So the question I want to address today is how can we foster more public-private partnerships in order to create more jobs for our community members? And to help answer this question, I'm going to tell you a story about a partnership. By the end of this story, I hope you are called to action. You will also hopefully leave with some very clear steps on what you can do back in your community to pull together business, company, and government partnerships to create more jobs, no matter what community or type of community you live in. A manufacturer of vermiculite. What's vermiculite? Vermiculite is used to insulate batteries, but a small manufacturer in a semi-rural community, through a networking opportunity with other manufacturers, discovered that vermiculite could also be used in housing insulation, specifically retrofitting insulation, and discovered vermiculite could be used to help aerate soil for potted plants and gardens. Voila, 2 new product lines. A small commercial heating, air conditioning company called J&J Mechanical, also through the same partnership, expanded their market to retrofitting opportunities. They were able to quadruple their employee base as a result. A steel fabricator, Maccabee Industrial, this is a very old company. It happens to be the same company that laid the original steel on the Brooklyn Bridge. They discovered through this same network, this partnership of manufacturers, some new opportunities in windmill parts manufacturing. Bam, new product line. How many of you are familiar with Corningware? Of course you are, right? You all have, I guarantee, a Corningware casserole dish somewhere in the back corners of your cupboards. You probably also have a Pyrex measuring, cup, also Corningware. So Corningware is now called World Kitchen, an affiliate of World Kitchen in this same community via this same partnership of manufacturers connected to a completely new market. They now manufacture Pyrex glass components for the emerging US solar panel market. They added 60 new jobs as a result. 6-0. Wow, that's impressive. Finally, a small wood stove manufacturer. This is one of my favorites, hailing from Okanagan. Shout out to Okanagan if anybody is here. Okanagan, thank you, also manufactures wood stove pellets, right? So this wood stove pellet manufacturer, through this same partnership, connected with natural gas drilling companies. Just think about that for a minute. When would that ever have happened otherwise? It would not have. But because they connected with oil and gas drilling companies, they came up with an entirely new product. They created a product using the wood stove pellet technology to create an absorber for a chemical waste produced during the drilling process. Again, bam, new product line. This company originally had 5 employees. They added 25. They now have 30 employees. They also tripled their supply base from 1 sawmill to 3 sawmills across a 3-county region. The bottom line is that in an 18-month period, this partnership of manufacturers created over 150 new jobs. How did they do this? What is the trick? It's actually quite simple. They connected. They networked. They connected over coffee breaks. They connected in hallway conversations. They connected by their cars on the way to the parking lot, out of meetings. They just connected. But someone had to get them to connect in the first place, right? There needed to be a someone. And so this is where you come in. In this story, a true story, that someone happens to be the director of a local workforce development council, Sean Seipold. Sean originally convened these manufacturers to find out what their short-term training needs were. And were there any common short-term training needs that he could then create solutions for? But Sean understood that if I can get these companies to stick around a little longer at my meetings, and if I can facilitate, even just with a few extra questions, the type of networking that will result in company-to-company connections, something far greater could happen. And that's exactly what he did. So, you may be wondering, how can you do this in your community? So think of Sean, because across the country, thousands of these industry partnerships exist. They're often called industry partnerships, often called sector partnerships. There are actually many names for these. They are convened by many types of organizations, including workforce development, including economic development, sometimes community colleges, community-based organizations, and mayor's offices. So, the lesson learned here is this can happen, and it can happen everywhere. You may be wondering one question. Why would competitors come together into a room? You may be thinking, this can't happen in my community. Consider first, yes, it can. Consider second, you may be more worried about bringing competitors together than the competitors themselves. Companies aren't going to share proprietary information freely. They know better than that, but they do get that if their entire industry succeeds, so too will they. So the best companies, employers in your communities get that company-to-company networking is incredibly important if they are actually going to grow, if they're going to create new product lines, identify new markets, and then get access to them. So company networking is in their DNA if they are good companies that get why growth happens. So let me back up and tell you the how-to very quickly. The critical elements, I'm going to go through them, and your job is to figure out how you go home and apply this. A convener, an intermediary, you got to have a somebody. It can be many different kinds of somebodies, but they need to be credible with the target industry, with the employers in that target industry. They need to be competent, and they need to know, how do I just facilitate networking? A target industry, you need to have a common framework. We all have economic development boards, we all have workforce development boards, we all have chambers of commerce. These are horizontal representations of industries in your community. These industry partnerships are vertical. They focus on one target industry because you need a common framework for employers to come around the table around. What better common framework than their industry? A common labor market region. You are not solving the global problems of an industry. You are not solving the national problems or even statewide. You are focusing on your labor market region. Now, what this does mean is that it is not restricted to just your city or just your county. In fact, these industry partnerships only thrive when they cross city and county lines, which after all are completely arbitrary geopolitical lines when it comes down to an industry's natural labor market region, right? Clusters of companies, if it's not clear. We're not talking about one-on-one engagement with employers or companies. We're talking about how do we engage these companies in a cluster, in a group, so that they truly have the opportunity to take advantage of synergies that might happen within their industry and then create new ideas that will lead to new jobs. Employers as partners, not as customers. This is a different mindset. You will always need to treat your employers in your community, depending on the services serving them, as a customer. But these industry partnerships work best when you are partnering with employers and encouraging them to partner with you. 2 final thoughts. You need to build on your natural industry strengths. 10 years ago, everybody and their brother wanted to be the next nanotechnology center of the universe. It didn't happen because that wasn't their strength. You have strengths. It's likely manufacturing. It's likely healthcare. It's probably something you haven't thought of, like transportation and logistics, or business and professional services. There are lots of industries that are creating the jobs now in your economy and in the future. Those are the drivers of your economy. Those are the ones you want to support in an industry partnership. Finally, opportunity-focused, not challenge-focused. How many times have you gotten companies or anybody, frankly, in a room together and said, tell me your challenges. What can we help you with? What do you leave with? You leave with a laundry list of challenges. You also have set an expectation that you're going to solve them all, which you can't do. And so often employers won't come back to your table because they were disappointed last time. When you start with the question, what are the opportunities for your industry in our region right now and on the horizon? You are setting a completely different tone. And you're going to come up with 2 or 3 areas where you could work on collectively, business and government partnering together. So, here's the best part. The best part is that these industry partnerships are not chance occurrences. Again, they exist all over the country, and they can exist in your community. They may already. They exist here in Washington State. They exist here in the city of Spokane. So, the challenge and the call to action to you is these need to happen more. And there are 2 steps you need to take. When you go home, pull your cabinet leadership together and ask the question, do we have industry partnerships, as I've just described? If not, you need to get organized and you need to create them for your critical industries that are driving your local economy. This is low-hanging fruit, and the fruit is sweet. We're talking jobs for your citizens, growth for your companies, and vibrant local economies. Thank you.